Okay, so we're now going to look at more advanced graphics features we have in WIZZKWIZ. So go straight into it. I'm going to do a multiple choice question here where you get different options for what graph has been plotted. Okay, so this is going to be key stage 4. Again, it's going to be quadratics, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anything else. Again, I'm going to put in the date with a letter so that I can find it quite easily. And the question is going to be select the quadratic that has been drawn above. Okay, so nothing much doing at the moment, but let's have a look at what we can do with the more advanced form of diagrams. Let's expand it out so we've got a bit of room to play in, and we're going to put our graphics code in here. All the different functions you could do with the graphics are in the tutorials page. Okay, so automatic graphics elements, and these are all the different things: triangles, rectangles, functions, paths, histograms, ellipses, sector, clock, x-axis, y-axis, etc. Okay, even molecule down there. And you can also do graphics transformations to rotate, enlarge, move, etc. Okay, but best way to learn is by example. And this quadratic I'm going to draw, I want to tee up my axes first of all. I don't want to go from left 0 to right 720. I'm going to go from left -4 to right 4. I'm going to go from top minus 5, or 5 should I do, to -5. So it's not going to be a perfectly square axis, but that doesn't really matter for these purposes. And now I want to actually draw the axes in. Okay, so I'm going to do x-axis. If I do x-axis 1, okay, what happens is you get an x-axis and it's displaced every 1. So the x-axis goes from -4 to +4, so you can notice there are 8 points there. Okay, but that doesn't help usually because they're not labelled. Okay, so if I do 1, 1, then they'll become labelled. Okay, if I wanted it to the labels to be only every 2 numbers, then I can do that. But 1's going to work well for the time being. Or I could say, well, I want my little dots to be a bit more frequent, so make that 0.5. Do that as well. And then if I also want to have sort of squared paper or lined paper in some way, another number, and you get the vertical lines there. So on the next line, the same thing with the y-axis, 1, 1, 1. And there we go. Okay, we've got a nicely drawn piece of paper. I think to make it a bit neater, I'm just going to put the both directions in there. So that looks quite neat now, but just be aware of the fact that on the x-axis is just going 1, 2, 3, whereas on the y-axis is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now because my question is going to be select the quadratic that's been drawn above, I want to actually draw a quadratic. And just like with normal questions, I'm not going to do all the eval first. I'm just going to get the thing drawn first of all. So I need to have a look at what my functions are I can use, and what I'm going to have to use is this thing here, function. Okay, there's 2 variations of function. One, it just assumes WT goes from steps of 0 to 100 in step 1, but I don't want to use that one. I want to use this one where you specify what the values of the parameter are, because they're all expressed as a parametric equation in WT. So we always use WT as the parameter. We always use WX as the x-axis and WY as the y-axis. So let's do it. Okay, so function. Now I want WX to go from -4 to 4. So the easiest way to get that to happen is to make WT go from -4 to 4, and steps of say 0.1. That's going to be reasonably smooth. If it's not smooth enough, I can make it 0.01. Okay, and then I have to put in eval, because we're now going to have to evaluate this function. Okay, so we're going to have to evaluate what wx is, and wx is going to be equal to wt. And we're also going to have to evaluate what wy is. So wy is going to be our quadratic, equals wx squared plus, let's say, 3 times wx plus 2. Okay, select update, and nothing's happened because we have an error. We haven't closed off the brackets at the end of the function. Okay, lo and behold, it's a pretty disastrous function. Okay, it's not worked very well, so let's try 0.01. And not surprisingly, that's not actually the issue. The issue is I'm thinking in Visual Basic or Excel terms, and that is not actually acceptable to the power of 2. In the JavaScript, which is underlying language, we have to do wx comma 2 like that. Pow, which means power, so a to the power of b is how that works. Okay, so now we've got the thing to work correctly. Okay, you'll notice that x squared plus 3x plus 2 factorizes as x plus 1, x plus 2, so we've got the roots of -2 and -1. So we've kind of got a start of where we want to actually get to, but we don't want this to be 3 always, and we don't want this to be 2 always. Okay, we want to randomly generate these values. So what we're going to do is randomly generate our roots, okay, and then we are going to calculate what the 3 and the 2 would be. So w alpha, we could do this all inside the one eval, equals random step -3, 3, 1, colon w beta equals random step -3, 3, 1, and then this 2 here is in fact equal to w, just put it in brackets to make sure, w alpha times w beta, and this 3 is minus w alpha minus w beta. Okay, and if we update that again, okay, it's all gone a bit bizarre. Okay, the reason why it's gone a bit bizarre is because we made quite a basic error, which is my fault, of putting the w alpha and the w beta inside the eval here. So it means every function point it tries to recalculate a random w alpha and a random w beta. Okay, so we take that out. Cut that from there, and we need to put in the previous line a calc function, which means it just calculates them in the previous line, and then they are then statically calculated. Okay, so you can see now we just get different values of where the roots are and different generated values of the quadratic. Okay, so this time we are not doing a numerical answer. Okay, we're doing a multiple choice, and we've got to select what quadratic it is. So we've got to write out now this quadratic. Okay, so the right answer is going to be in math notation, and we're going to write out a quadratic. So the best way to do this is to use the tidy up function again, but that tidy up function needs to be evaluated, so that needs to be inside an eval. So we're getting there, and then remember it's coefficient, what it's the coefficient of, coefficient, what it's the coefficient of. So the first coefficient is 1 in this case. Then what it's the coefficient of is x squared, where we are now using latex notation, so it is to the power of 2, okay, as opposed to here where we're actually calculating it. So it's getting a bit more complicated now. Then we need to work out minus alpha minus beta. Okay, but we can just copy and paste it. We're already in the eval, it's already going to try and work that out. And then we've got alpha times beta. Again, we're already in the eval, so it's already going to work that out. And then we leave that as the empty thing there to leave that blank. And now let's test the question. Okay, so we've got x squared minus x minus 6. So that's going to factorize at minus 3, x minus 3, and x plus 2. So x is equal to 3 and x is equal to minus 2. Or, let's just try x equals 3, we can see is 0. 9 minus 3 minus 6 is 0, or x is minus 2, so that would be 4 plus 2 minus 6 is 0. Okay, so that appears to be fine. And now we've got to generate the wrong answers as well, because it's a multiple choice question. Well, the best way to do that is to take the right answer, copy it down 3 or 4 times, however many wrong answers you want, and then just add a bit of randomness to the wrong answer, okay, to the right answer, sorry. So the first one I could do plus random step minus 1, comma 1, comma 2. Now it's quite subtle what I've done there. I've said a random number between minus 1 and plus 1 in steps of 2. So it's basically going to either pick minus 1 or plus 1. If I put 1 there, it could have picked 0, in which case you get the same answer as you've got there, okay, which you don't want. So that's the way to do that. Okay, something's gone wrong. And you can see I've changed that back to 0 rather than 2 because I was talking about the possibility of being a 0, so that shouldn't be that. So you can see now my first wrong answer is clearly wrong. It's a different answer. Okay, so that's fine. And I could do the same thing in terms of generating the answer. I could just copy, paste that, and put that one in there, and I've got another wrong answer. Okay, that's fine. And I mean, there's better and worse ways of doing this. One thing I could do is just put a minus in there. Okay, that gives me a nice wrong answer. And another thing I could do is perhaps put a minus in there and put that in there. Okay, and I've generated myself sort of coherent wrong answers. Another thing I could do is perhaps make that minus 2 to 2 and 4, or you could even leave that as 1. Okay, because that then could be 0, but since that's minus, it is still bound to be a wrong answer. So there's lots of ways of writing out a wrong answer. So if I click test question, I can see I've got my right answer there, x squared plus 2x minus 3, and I've got all my wrong answers, and they're all in nice form as well, so I've not got a 0x in there because I've used the tidy up function in each case. Okay, so let me click, just try that a couple more times, make sure that's all working, and we can then click submit question, and we've got ID 3293. So let's try that out. Okay, select the quadratic that's been drawn above. Well, x squared, clearly when it's 0, x squared plus 1 looks x squared minus 1, it looks like, doesn't it? Okay, or if I want to factorize that, that's x plus 1, x minus 1, so we have roots at what, plus 1 and minus 1. Okay, let's try it again. So this is going to have roots at minus 3 and 1, so it's going to be x plus 3 times x minus 1. So x squared plus 2x minus 3. Boom. Okay, and we've got a question that looks quite nice and quite plausible, and you know, though it's not exactly how I know, you wouldn't get an A-level question with, or a GCSE question with multiple choice, but you know, if you can do that, then you can do the question in the normal way. It's worth pointing out, obviously, all these, it's the first coefficient is always 1, so obviously you can generate this in different ways, but the way to check the first coefficient is 1 is if you go to the bottom of it, go across by 1, you've gone up by 1. Go across by 2, you've gone up by 4. Okay, so you know, it's worth students being aware of that kind of structure as well. Obviously, you could randomize the x squared to be minus and change in that way. There's all sorts of things you can do once you've sort of got the basic structures of how that works. Okay, so there we can see a more advanced type of graphics question. And I'll do another tutorial on other sort of graphics facilities, things like the rotation and stuff like that as well.